So do you feel then that it appears as though there's a period in that transition, in trying to move into a second-tier organization, there's this chaotic episode that goes on for X amount of time? Because one of the things that I was wondering about today, and it has been ruminated on, in fact, I brought up with Alex Gray in our dialogue last week, is what appears to me to be the absence of balance. Not just in my life, and ironically getting into the integral transformative game, that this intense accelerated movement in all of these directions almost feels like vertigo a lot of the time. And in the last 6 months to a year, I've been wondering, well, how do I reconcile, for instance, this is what I asked Alex, the way that I used to operate, which was going so deep in this one line, whether it was contemplative or creative or whatever, and that was where the spring of music and artwork and all of that stuff would come from. And I feel like when I got into a more balanced and integral approach to the work and the mystery, that almost evaporated in a way that recently I was like, whoa, can I even do that anymore? You know, am I going back? Did that well fill up or close over? So it seems as though you're saying that there's a natural course in, for instance, moving into a second-tier organization, or perhaps in an individual life as well. When I asked Alex this, he said, I don't know. I don't know how to do that. In fact, sometimes I freak out, I stop doing everything, and I just go and paint for 2 weeks. And that's not balanced or integral or whatever, but it is digging deep in that one line. So where, and I have to imagine that
digging deep in one line is not necessarily not integral. I mean, integral just means you're integrally informed about all these things. You're allowed to specialize and focus and even narrow your attention as long as it's within a framework that includes these other endeavors.
Yes. It does feel, though, sometimes when I fully delve into that and let it go as long as it wants, that it happens almost at the exclusion, not that I'm no longer conscious or aware of, but in terms of an engagement.
That's okay.
That's still okay.
Sure.
So that plus the period of the chaos where many people in the community feel like they're going crazy and that it's not balanced, but it is going toward this,
ideally,
Shangri-La of the second tier.
Well, keep in mind, too, that it's not like, I mean, this is where, obviously you have to be very careful when you're talking about anything that appears to be elitism. But on the other hand, you really can't avoid the fact that some of these things are elite. But we qualify it very, very quickly. It's an elitism to which all are invited. So it's no more than saying somebody understands integral calculus, or somebody understands differential math, or somebody understands how to do Vipassana. That's an elitism in the sense it's a technique that has to be learned. So it's not a put down, and we're not saying that only some people can be this and others can't. But anytime you're engaged in an elite activity, whether it's an elite Olympic trial, whether you're an athlete, a concert pianist, any time you're trying to bring excellence into any endeavor, then of course you have to bear down. Of course you have to put a lot of effort, a lot of attention, a lot of work, and a lot of energy into it. When that happens, obviously, it's a different kind of rules come into play. Now, we have an even further burden, which is that any time you are, in some sense, working with a leading edge of growth and development, again, it can be in any area. So it's not that there are millions of people that are pushing the edge and pushing the envelope in their own areas. But when we're doing it in consciousness, growth, and development, there are no precedents for this. This hasn't been done before. So it's not like there are a bunch of second-tier organizations out there and we're trying to create another one. That's an entirely different kind of, that would still be hard. But there aren't any out there. That this just hasn't really been done before. So we're doing something that we have no way to gauge whether we're doing it right or not. And so that's what makes it really interesting. Because usually you just don't have any compass points that you can judge. So what you have to do is you really just, it's more like you're parachuting down and doing something for the first time. And that's where you really can be very almost psychosis-inducing. So that's why you need Sangha. That's why you need a whole group of people who are checking this thing out. So you can at least make sure that you're collectively hallucinating. Right. That way you don't feel so alone when you go over the edge. And they have a whole wing of the local mental institution for you and your friends, not just isolated beds around the place. But it's very, very hard doing that. But that's really what we are trying to do, and I think that's why classically now it's just there are no rules for this. We do the best we can. We move very, very fast. You also, since learning is trial and error, you really have to be able to say, okay, let's try this, let's try this. No, it didn't work. Okay, let's try this, let's try. Oh, it didn't work. Okay, let's try this. And that's sort of this whole period. But I've seen even in the past, I would say 2 years, what we've learned and how we know how to do this is actually coming along really well. And every time you learn something and it hooks up with reality in a way that gets traction, it's very like those roulette wheels, you know, with like 4 lemons. Let's not say lemons. 4 cherries. And once one slots into place, it's there. And then you have to figure that, and then when it slots into place, and then it slots into place, and this slots into place, and then you get the jackpot. So we are kind of doing that, and some of these things are slotting into place. And once that happens, you can sort of count on it. But until then, it's really free-for-all. Mm-hmm. That's the fun, and that's the nightmare of doing something that's pioneering.